Hello and welcome to another episode of the CPMC podcast. I am MC, as always, joined by CP. Chris, what's going on tonight, man?
Not much, man. We're in full swing. I mean, full swing of the NFL season. Texts every Sunday about how much our teams stink. This guy's out, that guy's out. I am interested to see in this league here with 2 weeks down, how much of the current standings did that affect your rankings? Obviously, you have to take into it some account, right?
No, and that's what I was going to actually speak on, Chris. This was so bizarre, and I don't want to give anything away, and maybe things have changed enough. So I did the prep for this, Chris, on yesterday afternoon before the Monday night games, before this, standings were updated, obviously at midnight last night. Um, and I always start at the top, right? And when I'm going through the standings, I start at number one, and I just blindly rank where I think they should be. And without giving anything away, um, I had the first guy. I'm like, this team's not that great. Um, and I had him ranked ninth right off the jump. But again, it's all relative. I know the rest of the league and what I was going to
Right.
see, and it just never changed. And I like the teams that were in the middle of the pack that were maybe 1-1 after the first week. So I'm wondering, was there a bit of bad luck or what the situation was like? Um, so it's a decent spread. I mean, the top four teams on Monday weren't in the top four, are not
Very
in the top
interesting.
four of my rankings, which is wild. I really love the middle of the pack for some reason. So again, we'll see how things change. I haven't looked at the actual updated standings. I'm going to scroll through right now in front of you all to see. Um, that's interesting. Wow, this is gonna be a fun show. This is gonna be a very fun show. I'll put
I
it that
love
way
this. Great.
right
Great.
now. We'll start at number 12 and work our way up to number one. Um, so let's get into this right now, Chris. At number 12, I've got Zen Q, which ended up being last place. He was in 11th after 1 week. Now he's in actual 12th. This team is not good. To put it mildly, we've got Anthony Richardson, we've got Ahmed, we got Boston Scott, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Hopkins, Logan Thomas, Rashad Bateman, Shaheed, DPJ, and Jordan Love. Guys on the bench, not a whole lot here, Chris. Devontae Parker, a little bit of resurgence here. Josh Reynolds is the guy to own. I mean, he's a top like 12 wide receiver right now after 2 weeks. Tutu Atwell, same. Really just dominating. We've got JSN here sitting on the bottom of the bench. Taxi squad's got nothing. Here's the good thing, Chris. He's got two extra picks going forward. He did keep his own pick. He's got a couple of extra seconds going well. So while the roster I don't think is there, it's not awful, right? This isn't the worst last place team we've seen really in even the last two or three shows. It's not that bad. It's got some picks to work with. I think it's fine. I mean, it's the team is just fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's headed in the right direction too. You've got to feel good about the start Anthony Richardson's giving you at quarterback. When he plays, I mean, I think injuries could be an issue with this guy a little bit, but just the way he's taken some hits. But I mean, you have to be thrilled with that performance through 2 games, so far. So it looks like you've got your franchise QB there. And how about Jordan Love at your super flex spot? I think it looks like we've got both of our QBs set here, and it's wheels up going forward. And then you pair that with some of the wide receivers he's got as well, and I think this has the makings of a solid team right now. It's obviously you know about 5, 6 players away, but at least we've got our backbone here. Um, and we've got our picks to work with where we can start to fill in around, our anchor type players. Listen, I think, we're probably going to be moving on from Michael Pittman and Terry McLaurin here. DeAndre Hopkins, if we can get anything, those guys look like easy sells, but, we can hang on to Rashad Bateman, Rashid Shaheed. Those guys I think we can hang on to. Tutu Atwell even looks like he's a player that we can hang on to. Let's just get some value where we can. Keep the quarterbacks, keep the picks, and build this thing out the way it's going.
Yeah, right. And again, don't forget about JSN down there at the
Yeah.
bottom of the bench. John Mechie, we'll see if he, really gets things going since he missed his rookie campaign a year ago. Yeah, there's pieces here, Chris. I don't think it's all gloom and doom for this team by any stretch of the imagination. I would sell really anything that's not tied down. I'd actually hold on to McLaurin. I don't think this is a like 2, 3 year rebuild. I think as early as next year, he can start to announce himself as in the mix. So I don't know if I need to sell off guys like that. I know he's only got, what is he? He's like 28, I think, Chris. He's actually sneaky old, McLaurin. He is 28, so I was right about that. Love Pittman. Pittman Richardson could be the future for out there in Indy. So I like what he has. He's obviously going to have to refill running back in the draft, but listen, when you're rebuilding like this, wide receiver is the way to go. And he's got that in spades, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I don't really, for the 12th place team, I don't have a ton of negative to say here. He's clearly doing things the right way. Very fortuitous, again, with the quarterback position. It sets him up nicely to be really flexible in the draft. He's probably going to have the number one pick, and he doesn't necessarily have to go QB. He can either trade it or go with the top position player. So he set himself up here in a really nice spot.
All right, Chris, here's where things get wild. Absolutely wild. My 11th ranked team is currently sitting at 4-0 in the number 2 hole, Bose on Kells, if that's how you pronounce it. Bose on Kells. This is my number 11 team. We've got Herbert, Sanders, Swift, Debo, Nico Collins, Cortland Sutton, David Njoku, Dalton Kincaid, Allen Robinson, Dobbs, and Stafford. Guys on the bench, we've got CJ Stroud, Aaron Jones. Geez, not a whole lot else, Chris, really to speak of. He's got his own first. He's got an extra third moving forward, so not a whole lot else there. I mean, we've his points for isn't bad. I mean, he's not at the top, but he's like 3 or 4. Points against are fine, so it's not like he's getting lucky. But I mean, Chris, could you imagine a worse last? I would even say, including Nico Collins, and I know he's doing fine, but Nico Collins, Cortland Sutton, and Njoku, Kincaid, Allen Robinson, and Dobbs. That's gross. I mean, it's not good. I mean, where did all these points come from?
Yeah, I mean he's had some guys who have had a hot couple of weeks. I would say, with Nico Collins putting up 30 this past week, DeAndre Swift almost put up 40. I mean, even Debo had a big week. His quarterback play is excellent with Matthew Stafford and Justin Herbert. That accounts for a lot of his points. You know, it's tough. I mean, the back end, I agree, it is not very good. I think it's just going to be super inconsistent, right? Allen Robinson had a pretty good week one. Maybe he gets Christian Watson back soon. I forget what the time frame is on him, but maybe he comes back soon. In this lineup looks a little better. You plug him in instead of Dobbs, and the lineup maybe looks a tiny bit better, but yeah, I mean, the back end, it just does leave a lot to be desired. We don't really have much in the way of running back as well with Aaron Jones out. Man, it's not a bad team by any stretch. I think it's definitely better than our last team, but I think is this team could be in for a wild ride all season. I think it's just a lot of inconsistent players, and the players who have done well, DeAndre Swift, and Nico Collins especially. I mean, you tell me when those guys are going to go off because I got no idea. I think they're just going to be, peaks and valleys all season with those two. So the ranking I think is interesting, but I do think it's fair looking at this. The back end just certainly leaves too much to be desired.
Yeah, so he was actually in fourth after week one. But Chris, I mean, if this was a startup draft, you're looking at this as, Herbert obviously being a top 5 pick. Tell me the next guy drafted. I mean, you're probably looking at the
Like,
6th round, Debo Samuel.
or didn't Christian Watson start going in like the fourth?
I don't even, I mean, that's not
He
even
he
something that I
he
would acknowledge if that was true.
Well, I mean, we always ignored him at that price, but I mean, he would have, but your point is well taken, is that there's really, outside of Herbert, the elite talent is really not there. right? There's really no, sort of second or third round player. The quarterback, I like his quarterback depth. It's just going to be really inconsistent for this team. I don't see how you don't ride it out though, right? You've got to ride this wave and see what the heck happens. You've got your own pick. I mean, I wouldn't go selling anybody, but I wouldn't be quick to buy anybody either. Any sort of veteran, I would just let this thing ride out, see what the heck happens. Maybe we're in the mood for some sort of lucky, crazy season where things just break right for you.
I mean, if this is a team that hits, then we're going to lose a significant amount of money this year, Chris, because these are not guys outside of Swift that we own a lot of. So let's hope that, for our sake, that this team doesn't go bonkers because we are in for a lot of trouble. Anyway, listen, he's sitting at 4-0 right here. Maybe I'll have egg on my face, come week 13 when he's still up there. But I just don't see this team having the staying power. But we'll see. Chris, let's get to our number 10 team. We're going to go down to Ja 817, who was ranked 10th at that time. Now he's 11th, so I think he is what he is. And we've got Brock Purdy, Javonte Williams, starting Josh Kelly, DK, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin, Kittle Harris, Jerry Jeudy, Freiermuth, and Tua Tagovailoa. Guys on the bench, we got Jimmy G, Jalen Warren, probably worth a mention now as well. Nothing else down here. Austin Hooper caught a couple of balls this past week. Hunter Henry's been very good. Kate Otton's been very solid as well. We've got Dobbins and Taylor and Rodgers on the bench. Oh my, that's going to be problematic. Hendershot sitting here on the bench. Nothing else. No first next year. That's going to be problematic. We've got a couple of seconds in tow. Oh boy, Chris. It's got some decent talent. I mean, I think it's better than what we just saw. Will you agree there? Outside of, the current quarterback play, it doesn't have the name brand value, but position players, I take this team 10 times out of 10 over the last.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's so tough with this team. I mean, look at the injured reserve on this team: Dobbins, Taylor, and Rodgers. I mean, this team had high hopes, I think, going into the season, and I would feel okay about this team potentially being a playoff team if we could have weathered the storm and gotten Taylor back, and then not lost Dobbins and I mean, this team with those three players that he has on IR, I think we're looking at a squarely at a playoff team. But unfortunately, it's not the case. And starting 0-4 here, I feel like it might be a sell job here, Matt. Are you thinking? Are you thinking the same thing here? Just kind of sell this thing and rebuild, retool the whole thing here.
It's just the wrong time. I mean, this is the all underperforming team of the entire NFL.
I mean,
Uh,
you can still get a solid amount for guys like Garrett Wilson, DK Metcalf. I think you can get there's name brand value in almost all these guys. Maybe not Najee Harris, but the rest, I think maybe you can. I think you can still do fine.
Maybe. I mean, Kittle's not giving you any type of return, even with two. I mean, you're not paying a first even in this league right now for Kittle. It's 2 PPR. I mean,
Oh
you
man,
probably got to consider it, but with the way he's been not producing, I mean, somebody just offered me a 24 first for Jerry Jeudy, and I couldn't reject it quick enough. They wanted my first in exchange for Jerry Jeudy, my first is a late, and I want no part of that. DK Metcalf a little bit banged up here. Javonte Williams, he's just been okay. Waiting for him to kind of break out. Purdy's been fine, but I mean, I'd love to sell, but who am I selling and getting a first for here outside of Garrett Wilson? I don't think you're returning a first anywhere for any of these guys right now, except for Garrett Wilson.
I, you know, I, Javonte Williams, I think, is a guy who can still get you a first. I think you can still get a late first for Javonte Williams. And if I was a contender who needed a running back, I think I'd pay that as well. So there's one. I think you can get a first for DK Metcalf pretty handily. Um, you know, you, how about Jonathan Taylor too? I mean, is somebody paying a first for him right now? They've already eaten 2 games. He comes back week 5. You only have to miss 2 more, and he's good to go. I mean, that's a potentially league-winning move if you can pay a first for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean that's a
Um,
no-brainer. You can get a first for Taylor, no problem. I mean, I'd pay 2 first probably for him right now.
I mean, he's got some guys here that he can maybe make some headway with. But your point, I do agree with your point here. A lot of these guys are underperforming, and it's probably not the best time to sell them. But I think the fact remains with this team, starting 0-4 with the guys he has on IR, the bad injury luck he's had, and just kind of guys like George Kittle and Najee Harris and Jerry Jeudy not firing yet, we've got to be on the lookout to kind of offload these guys at the right time.
Yeah, I mean that would be nice. Certainly be able to, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to string together a couple of games. But I think if you start stringing together a couple of games with these guys, you might see a couple of victories, and he may hang on a little bit longer. But we'll see there. That's Ja 817 at 10. Let's go to our number 9 team here, Chris, who was second place as of yesterday. Now he's in first place. Chris, Steel Texan is my number 9 ranked team. He's the other 4-0 team. He's got the second most points scored so far. Let's take a look. Let's see who's got this one right. We've got Kenny Pickett, Al Jair, Ramondre Stevenson, Ty Hill, Gabe Davis, KJ Osborne, Darren Waller, Mostert, Kyron Williams, Tyler Boyd, and Ryan Tannehill. Chris, that's not a good team right there, man. Sitting in first place. I'll give you the bench guys just to kind of round it out. We've got Kamara, we've got Eckler right there. Rashee Rice may be worth a mention. Mike Gesicki as well, caught a few balls. Taxi Squad's got Okonkwo and Musgrave on it. No first this year. Listen, he's sitting in first, Chris. He had a big week from Eckler week 1. He's not here week 2. Kamara's coming back next week or after next week. He gets the boost from Kyron Williams. Mostert goes off this week. I mean, we had a lot of monster weeks this week. Guys that played a little out of their capabilities. I'll even say Ryan Tannehill as well for 29 points. But man, I just don't see this team having the staying power either, Chris.
Yeah, you might even have this team too high. I don't like this team one bit. This team might be, 11 or 12 if I did the rankings. But I mean, listen, sitting there in first, he's had a couple monster weeks. His points for is it looks like it's second overall. I mean, he's one of only 2 teams to score over 400 points, so he's doing something right. I just don't think this is sustainable. I'm in agreement here with you that this team looks like smoke and mirrors to me. Aside from Ty Hill, but hey, I mean, the proof is in the point so far. But I think, I mean, if I could, I just can't see a world where Kenny Pickett and Ryan Tannehill are leading, a team to the playoffs. Especially with these position players here like Al Jair, Gabe Davis, KJ Osborne. I mean, these guys are playing regular roles. These are guys I hardly feel comfortable playing on bye weeks. I do not like this team one bit, Matt. I would be selling all of these guys who have had hot starts. And I understand this team is 4-0, sitting at the top of the league, but this is like the ultimate sell high team if you can get it.
I mean, I'd love that if I was like 3-1, 2-2, but man, sitting at the top of the table, second in points, that is tough to be able to just get off of. That would take some massive, massive guts to be able to do. And if I remember correctly, he doesn't even have his first. So we don't want to tank all the way really with what he has here. I wonder if it's going to actually improve Chris, right? I mean, let's say Kamara
Yeah.
is a 15-point guy. Let's say Eckler's his normal old self, right? We can throw those 2 guys in there, get Al Jair, who's getting touches, man. He had 15 carries, I think, week 1, 16 week 2, empty touches, really. Only turned them into 48 yards. But listen, Kyron Williams isn't going anywhere. Mostert seems to be not going anywhere. But so if we can try to find some wide receiver help, right? I don't want to be starting KJ Osborne every single week, but if I can get Boyd out of there, put in Eckler in that spot, get Al Jair out of there and put Kamara in that spot, suddenly I think this team looks a little bit better. But man, I think it begins and ends with what you said, Chris, the quarterbacks, Tannehill and Kenny Pickett. That would be a miracle if that duo can get you to the semifinals.
I mean, but listen, we love our bad quarterbacks. There's nothing we love more than bad quarterbacks. But I mean, it's tough to overlook that. You know, I think you kind of swayed me here on maybe potentially, getting a wide receiver upgrade somewhere. I mean, maybe we try and pair Rasheed Rice in a second to try and get a veteran wide receiver and kind of run this thing down and just see what the heck happens. Maybe we've got lightning in a bottle with guys like Mostert and Kyron Williams this year. Maybe those guys end up being, top 10 backs by the end of the year. It's possible. Can't rule it out with the way they've started. And then, if we can add some sort of veteran presence, wide receiver that's going to be stable, that we don't have to deal with Tyler Boyd or KJ Osborne, week in, week out, maybe this team can sustain this. And I think that's worth a shot here because, like you say, he doesn't have his pick. You've swayed me on becoming maybe a potential buyer as opposed to a seller, given that he doesn't have his pick. So I think that's got to be the play is try and catch this lightning and go for it.
Yeah, I mean, ride it out. I mean, if things get dicey and you turn into, whatever, 6-4 or something like that, and you really start to see the trend, maybe you lose a guy to injury, don't want that to happen, obviously, then maybe you become a seller. But I think right now, let's just kind of stay the course. I mean, geez, all he's got to do is make the median, find a way to steal 1 point every week for the next, I don't know, 4 weeks or so. And I think he puts himself in a really good position to, be a contender after 6-7 weeks. So yeah, I think I just stay the course for now. And then at some point, maybe I become a buyer. Don't have a whole lot of ammo to throw there, but yeah, I think it's a little bit too positive a situation right now to become a seller. So, Chris, number 8 is going to be Captain Ted, who is actually sitting at number 1 after week 1. So he was the first team that I looked at. Originally marked him down as 9. And I scribbled out a ton of things as I was going through. I had him as low as 10, and I think as high as 6. So I was all over the place with this team. Ended up settling on 8. Let's take a look. We've got Cousins, McCaffrey, Mixon, Diggs. Good start. Very good start. Then we go Valdez Scantling, Mr. Goose Egg, Darnell Mooney, Irv Smith, Tony Pollard, Khalil Herbert, Jamal Williams, and Derek Carr. Guys on the bench, we've got Dobbs. We've got Chuba Hubbard scored 11 points this week. We got Damian Harris. Not a whole lot else worth of mention. Rondale Moore caught a ball. Not a whole lot here on injured reserve that's worth mentioning. Taxi squad is bare except for Jerome Ford, who's going to be the guy going forward. It appears that'll help this team out, though I don't see it boosting it too much. Picks are intact going forward. Listen, Chris, we started off really, really good, right? Kirk Cousins is playing out of his mind right now. McCaffrey, we know, is just a locked in 25 points in this format. Joe Mixon's he's been a solid. He's been, I would say, good, not great. Steph Diggs, just always very good. Going to give you a good floor every single week. Tony Pollard, but then it gets ugly after that, man. So I ended up at 8 with this team. It's fine, but it's not good.
Yeah, very stars and scrubs here, obviously. We've got some elite talent at the top, and then, I mean, just borderline zeros on the back end here, which really hurts. He's loses Jamal Williams on Monday. We'll see how long that goes. It's man, I'm so torn on this team, man. I don't want to buy. I don't want to buy with this team, but is there enough star power here to maybe not want to sell, or do you want to capitalize here on guys like Cousins, McCaffrey, Mixon, Diggs, and hit the complete reset button on this thing? I'm really, really torn here. I just think he's going to need too many pieces in the end in order to really, become a buyer. I don't think he has the ammo to go out and buy all the pieces he needs. Even with Jerome Ford sitting here on taxi as a guy you can plug into the lineup right away. I'm actually leaning towards sell with this team, Matt.
This is the easiest sell decision I think of my life. Just staring at this, where we are right now. Cousins can return a first right now. McCaffrey 2+, Joe Mixon maybe one. We'll see. Diggs 1+, 1.5 if not 2. Tony Pollard, I want north of 1 as well. I'd get rid of Derek Carr. I'd get rid of Dobbs. I would also get rid of Jerome Ford right now. All these guys can bring you back something value. I'd start building up through my wide receiver position that is decimated right now, Chris. This is an ugly, ugly wide receiver room right now, and we've got to do something about it. This is, again, started off okay. The news has been as good as positive, getting a guy like Jerome Ford added to a team that's in the top 5. But no, Chris, this is as smoke and mirrors as it gets. Let's get off of this thing right now because I don't think this is the potential to win a title. And you're going to waste possibly the best time to sell Cousins, McCaffrey, Mixon, and Diggs. There's never going to be a better time to sell any of those guys. Probably throw Pollard on that list as well.
Yeah, I would go ahead and poke around for one of the rookie QBs for Cousins if I could. If maybe somebody soured on, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young after the first couple of weeks, I would poke around. Put some feelers out there. When I'm rebuilding, my first thing is always let me get my young quarterbacks that I believe in, and then I'll build out from there with picks and wide receivers. So that would be kind of my first. That would be my first call to the GM with one of those rookie wide receivers or running or quarterback, excuse me.
All right, let's get to our number 7 team, Chris. He was sitting dead last after week 1. Now he's sitting at 9. Nice little boost here. Whatever happened in week 2, we got Bigger Dunk sitting here at number 7. We've got Joe Burrow, man, Mr. Disappointment so far this year. Montgomery banged up, Travis Etienne little dinged up, Gallup, Devontae Smith, George Pickens, Tanyan, who's as good as a 0, Slayton, James Cook, Drake London, and Lamar Jackson. Guys on the bench, we've got Zach Wilson, who's thrust into play. Nelson Aguilar caught a ball. This guy, Jaleel McLaughlin, caught a ball. Chris, did you know Jaleel McLaughlin was an NFL player?
I did not know he was an actual human being, in fact.
We got Jalen Hyatt, 2 catches for 89 this year. We've got Cup sitting on the bench as well. This guy Wicks caught a touchdown. Some odd touchdown makers for this team this week. He's got somebody else's first, doesn't have his own. Chris, this is an interesting team. You look at this lineup and you say, man, that is not that good. We've got Gallup, who, speaking of borderline 0, we've got Tanyan, who's a guaranteed 0. Slayton, may have played a little above what he should be doing as well. But listen, I like Cooper Kupp when he comes back. And I guess I just kind of doubled down on these quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, both off to, in my opinion, disappointing starts. As long as health is not in question, I think these guys will help this team right the ship a little bit more. And once he can start to plug a player in or two, this is a team I'd be more likely to buy with to kind of patch some of these holes and see what we can do. But man, in a huge tight end premium league, to be rolling Robert Tanyan out there and getting a 0, I think both weeks, that's not good.
Yeah, we've got to figure out a way to address this tight end spot. I mean, can we go get Zach Ertz on this team? Can we go get a Gerald Everett? Just give me somebody who's starting with the ability to catch, 3, 4, 5 balls a game, and that's not going to cost too much. What I like about this team, Matt, is that the holes he has are not major, right? Our quarterback situation is great. Our wide receiver group is solid. I mean, with Drake London, George Pickens, Devontae Smith, we have a couple holes here on the back end with Michael Gallup, Darius Slade, and the aforementioned Robert Tanyan. So the holes he has, I think, can be filled fairly easily with simple draft pick trades. He does have that first. He's got a second still. He's got some things to work with. And then he gets cut back as well at some point, and he can plug him in. So the holes that he has, I think, can easily be filled with simple non-blockbuster trades. You can just make a deal and plug in that hole for fairly reasonably and get some cheap production, which is all this team really needs, I think, to kind of make a playoff push. I think it's with the 2 quarterbacks. And then listen, Burrow has stunk. So with the 2 quarterbacks and the rebound there that you expect from Burrow, couple moves here, and I think this team's right there in the thick of it. So I'm with you. This is a clear buyer for me.
Yeah, and I think the guys that have been good haven't been like out of their mind good, right? Where I think these are guys that consistently can do what they're currently doing. So, yeah, I think there's only going to be one way to go for this team. I think it's going to move up pretty steadily as we move forward. I wish it was a little bit deeper, but Yeah, it's going to look a little bit different with Cup in this lineup. And listen, maybe one of these guys that, we talked, joked about some weird touchdowns this week. Maybe one of these guys, Jalen Hyatt, this guy Wicks, Aguilar. I don't think that's likely to happen, but maybe one of these guys becomes a mainstay, a guy that you could put in the lineup. Maybe look to move off of Zach Wilson if you can on some level. See if there's, you can go and get a vet. I don't know, turn him into Adam Thielen. Can you do something like that depending on where Thielen is? I don't know, but I'd investigate something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to explore all possibilities here to get guys. Like you said, Adam Thielen is the perfect name. He always is for the CPMC podcast here. Always go get Adam Thielen. I mean, at the price you can't beat his production.
All right, let's move on to number 6, Chris, our final team of the first half of the show. We're going with Cabo Bum. He's sitting here at 0-4, which is not great news. The news got worse last night as Nick Chubb literally folded in half like a toothpick in that leg. It was not pretty to see. Hopefully he's doing better. I've got him at sorry, Chris. Wait, was that just 7 that we did?
You're the host, man.
Oh my word, Chris. We're going to take our break right now. This is our first time ever spoiling the second half of the show. We go 6 through 1 in the second half of the show. We want to make sure that we give Cabo Bum his due diligence. So we're going to let you stew in that for a few moments. We're coming right back for the second half of the show. Just you wait right there.